All right, we are recording. Welcome and thank you so much for joining HRAI and Distance for the next HVACR and AI Sales Funnel Masterclass webinar. We're welcoming back Nick D'Urbano. There he is on our screen right now. He joined us a couple months ago to take us through the Sales Funnel Masterclass, including AI. He's back with a bit more information, some new insights, and also giving us time to do a Q&A at the back end of this presentation. So if you have any questions, you can put them in the bottom of the screen. You'll see a chat button. Put them there. Put them in the Q&A bar. We will get to as many as we can. But first, we're going to let Nick do his thing. I also want to mention something kind of new for the webinars. You might see it at the end of each webinar. You'll be sent a questionnaire, a survey on what you got from this. So please take 2 seconds to say what's on your mind, give us some feedback, tell Nick all the good things that he did this presentation, and we can help improve these webinars for you. So that's my ramble. Thank you so much, Nick, again for joining us, for coming back.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Wonderful.
All right, so I'm going to share my screen and we'll jump right into it. Here we go. All right, do you see my screen?
We are good to go.
Okay, cool. So basically, in this presentation, we're gonna kind of focus on a few different things. My objective here is to help the folks in this audience who are all running businesses become more efficient with their sales and marketing process. And how do we do that in the age of AI? What are some tools, tactics, and strategies that we can use? Before we do that, we're going to want to understand what's the mechanic of a good sales funnel. So before we talk about the technology we can use to improve it, let's set some foundational principles first around how you should even look at this as a business owner. Then we'll talk about how to optimize it with or without technology. Why is this important? And we're going to look at some playbooks. I want this to be very tactical. I want all of you folks to be able to take some of this stuff back with you into your businesses as early as tomorrow and start implementing some of this stuff. I'm also going to quantify some of the data that we have with all of our customers around what you can expect when you start implementing some of these different strategies. What kind of revenue expectations, new leads should I expect to capture when I start to implement some of this stuff? All right, a quick little blurb about me. My name is Nick. I'm the co-founder and CRO at Distance. Before that, my business partner and I have scaled multiple software businesses in the Canadian and US market to 9 figures of revenue. So our whole focus, and I spent the better part of 20 years of my career thinking about sales and sales funnels. And so whether you're running an e-commerce business, a software business, or a service business, a lot of those principles can be translated and applied across industries, across categories. And hopefully there'll be some interesting little tidbits that you guys can take away from this that help move the needle. Distance itself, just a quick parable. We are a sales platform. So a lot of the concepts that we're going to be talking about today, our product can help you with, but this is not a conversation about distance. It's a conversation about sales and how you can be more effective. But for context, we are a sales platform. We have a bunch of tools like AI voice, AI chat, outbound products like SMS, email that help our clients capture more leads and book more jobs. All right. So now that parable is out of the way, let's get into the meat of the matter. Funnels. All right. So what is a sales funnel? A sales funnel is basically the stages, the customer journey between when they first set eyes on you to when they give you that money, whether that's a check or cash or whatever the case may be. What is that process to go from discovery all the way down to a closed won deal? And what's the percentage likelihood of closing at every single stage? And so in order to break this down, we want to understand what is a top of funnel, what is a middle of funnel, and what is a bottom of funnel. Top of funnel, what channels am I chasing? So where am I getting these leads from? Are they business development leads, B2B, commercial leads? Am I acquiring them through Facebook ads, referrals? Where exactly are these channels coming from? How am I filling the top of the funnel? Middle of funnel, what's my process to engage them? All right. And then bottom of funnel, how am I closing them? All right. And so if we dig in a little bit deeper, top of funnel, there are a ton. This list is not exhaustive. There are dozens of different strategies that you could do to drive leads into your business. Some are expensive, some are cheap, some take a lot of time, some don't take any time whatsoever. Some, rely on networks, others rely on on capital. So it really is a mixed bag here. You got to figure out what works for you, where you have an advantage. But obviously, this will give you an example of just some of the ideas that we can kind of pull on or test in order to drive top of funnel into our business. Middle of funnel, that's really once a lead engages with you, how are they engaging? Are they calling? Are they chatting? Is it a text? Is it a form submission? Is it a shared line? Is it a direct line? Is it going to your sales team, your CSR, your BDR, your after-hour call center solution? Where are these leads going to at that first or second touch in order to convert them to a job? And then bottom of funnel, really, who is answering the phone? What is the script? What's the pricing? What's the call to action? How quick are you? What are the terms, right? These are all the mechanics at the bottom of the funnel that you're going to use to convert the deal. Fundamentally, speed is your friend here. The faster you can go from point A to point B, the higher the likelihood it is that you are going to close deals. So if you think of an example, okay, I'm running ads on Google. What's that funnel look like? I spend money on Google. Someone sees an ad, they click an ad, they come to my website, they call the number, we dispatch, we go on site, and we close the deal at the door. All right, well, in that scenario, once you have some data, you could say, all right, I expect that 10% of the people that click on my ad are going to buy. 30% of the people that visit the site are going to buy. 50% that answer my calls are going to buy. 80% of people that dispatch are going to buy. 90% of the time when I'm on site, they're going to buy. So I can go and I can actually analyze the efficacy of my funnel and start to understand where I am falling short, right? All of a sudden, and there are very clear benchmarks here. You can ask your peer group, you can ask ChatGPT what the expectation is based on the funnel that you're talking about, to validate whether or not you have a problem. So all of a sudden, if you're dispatching and 60% of the time you're booking, I would say that's a pretty low percentage probability to close. Call to answer ratio. If you are hopping on a call and 1 out of 2 times you're booking, that's about average. Now, if you're booking 1 out of 3 times, I would say that's pretty low, right? So who's answering your call? What's your script? What's your process? What's your pricing? We can start to analyze the problem where it is and where it's festering. All right, so once you start doing this, you can start doing it for all your different channels. So your commercial accounts, your direct accounts, PPC ad campaigns, whatever the case may be, and start assessing, what's trending green, what's trending yellow, what's trending red, and you can start making some adjustments appropriately. So some questions that you should ask yourself, what's the data telling me per stage of the funnel? Where can we improve? What should we test? And what does success look like, right? What does success look like relative to my goals, relative to my peers, relative to the benchmarks? All of this, by the way, will be accessible to you afterwards. If you want to get in touch, I'll share the presentation with you. All right, my favorite quote: "If you don't measure it, you can't improve it." Charlie Munger, the famous business partner to Warren Buffett. Very important and something that you should all keep in the back of your head. Now, the fun stuff, AI. All right. So how does AI fit into the equation here? Well, there are 2 modalities, right? If you want to improve your sales funnel, you typically can either delegate more tasks to labor, to your sales team, to your CSR team, or you can take repetitive tasks or things that you're either not doing or not doing consistently, and you can start automating some of these things so that you can have some more consistency in your business. I'm not saying you need to automate everything, but there are pieces of these equations that need to be automated or should be automated in order to drive consistent outcomes. And so the benefit here is obviously if you automate it, it's much more scalable, much less expensive, and much more consistent than human labor. So AI sales funnels means AI is engaging with your customer. All right. So if we're starting to implement AI into our sales mix, we have this new modality that we need to contend with, which is I don't have a human dealing with customers. At some point of the equation, there's going to be an AI engaging with my customer. You might have already seen this when you made a reservation at a restaurant or you made a call somewhere. You've chatted with sometimes you probably don't even know you're speaking to an AI, especially on the chat side. But this is becoming more and more predominant in the commercial landscape. Now, there are some nuances to doing this efficiently and effectively. And so hopefully some of these tidbits that I'm going to share with you here will give you the framework for how to go about this. the really important thing to understand is AI operates differently from humans. All right. So we need some guidelines because you can't just go in and have the AI do the same work or the same process or ask the same questions and run the same workflow that a human does. It does need to be adapted to the technology. So, the way I like to frame this is the AI out of the box, is incredibly competent, but not as intelligent as you think, right? So our goal is to take it from point A and bring it to point B, which is we need to train it, we need to give it more context, and we need to give it the guardrails that it's going to use in order to be successful. When you talk to ChatGPT, it's really impressive, but the stakes are low, and there really is no basis for. You could talk about it you could talk about chat. You could talk with ChatGPT about anything, right? You could have a conversation about the weather, about the sky, about the clouds. When AI is operating in your business, you want it to be focused. You want it to be constrained to specific topics. So you need to take something that is, incredibly capable, but narrow the capacity for your business, which is easier said than done. So the first thing you want to do is, and we're going to go through some strategies here, is optimizing, especially on the voice side, optimizing the first 15 seconds of an engagement with an AI. That is the most critical part. All right. So you want to set expectations that you're talking to an agent without necessarily saying you're an agent. You need to state your intent, and you need to ask very clear next step type questions. All right. So here's a bad example of what that sounds like. Hey, this is Acme's AI agent, John. How can I help you? All right. Nobody wants to speak to AI agent John. How can I help you is way too broad of a statement, not a good way to introduce your agent to your prospective customers. A better is, hi, this is Acme's emergency automated response line or automated response line. Are you dealing with an emergency or an active leak? So I'm stating that this is automated without saying AI John and something a little bit, tacky. I'm also being very specific with my line of questioning to start bringing people into a specific bucket without telling them to press 1 to go to customer service. I'm saying, all right, is this an emergency, like an active leak? I'm giving you a path to go down. I'm guiding the conversation, and I'm not leaving it incredibly open-ended. Another strategy that a lot of clients use, hi, unfortunately, Acme agents are all busy at the moment, but maybe I can help you. And so that, again, is signaling to the customer, hey, maybe I can help you, right? We're currently busy. We have an automated response system, and let's engage. And oftentimes, folks will start to engage with the AI when it's framed in this way in those first 15 seconds. So those are just a few examples of how to use this type of technology effectively in the first 15 seconds on the voice side. On the chat side, you don't even have to worry about this. It doesn't even make a difference. You could just engage normally. Hi, how can I help you? On the chat side, the AI is wildly more capable than a human. On the voice side, there is a fine balance. You want to make sure that you are not scaring people off. And so these best practices help quite a bit in order to create effective conversations. The other piece is you want to have one goal per agent. So if you're using AI, you don't want to have AI doing 300 things or 200 things. You want to have a very specific objective. If you're calling and the AI is answering, the AI's job is to qualify a deal, right? And then transfer it to someone. Or it is to book an appointment if someone fits these criteria. Very specific. If you start adding a lot of different criteria that the AI is supposed to do, you're going to get suboptimal results. So the core point here is that focus is absolutely critical to generating good outcomes with AI across voice, across chat, it doesn't matter. So these are some principles that you should keep in the back of your head. Identify and transfer for emergencies, transfer calls to the appropriate department, capture and qualify leads. These are all very specific examples of a focused agent, all right? And so you got to think through, all right, why am I using this agent? What's the goal of the agent? And how do I narrow the focus? Now, one thing to keep in mind is prompts, right? So the way that you train the agent is by providing prompts. And the way that you provide prompts, and sometimes, products like Distance will do this for you, but I think it's important to understand, even as you start engaging with AI, to understand like the best way to train these things. And so when you think about a prompt, when you think about training, You want to think of like, what is the role of the AI? So who is the agent, right? What role are they playing in your organization? You are a sales representative. You are a customer service representative. You want to make sure that the AI understands its role. Rules, all right? Here are things that you should do, things that you should never do. I'm setting boundary conditions. And then knowledge. What knowledge can it reference? Are there some databases? Is there some example scripts that I can share with it to educate it on the nuts and bolts of my business? So what I'm not doing here is giving my AI a manuscript to follow. That is not effective. What you need to do is train it contextually with roles, rules, and knowledge. Okay. Next up, we're going to think about optimizing your AI for resolutions. All right. So the goal here is to understand the issue, confirm understanding of the issue, either resolve the issue or escalate it, and make sure there's a very clear closing statement. So I'll give you a few examples of this in a moment. So, I'm going to actually skip through. I want you to create very explicit escalation rules as well. So, for example, if a user is expressing frustration twice, transfer it to a human. If there's an issue outside of my allocated action items, transfer it to a human. If there's a legal or safety issue, transfer it to a human. So we're setting all these boundary conditions, and we're going to teach it what not to do as well. So don't guess policies, do not invent pricing, do not invent timelines, et cetera, et cetera. All right. So these are some very tactical things. Now, some of this you might not use, but I think it's important to have in the back of your head when you start engaging with AI, thinking about it in this way, whether you're using a product like Distance or whether you're just honestly playing with ChatGPT and having it engage and create copy for you. If you want to get the best results, this is what you need to do. Last but not least, I think this is my penultimate point here, are decision trees, not paragraphs. So this is how you should communicate to the AI. If it's an issue for billing, then verify the account, explain the charge, offer a resolution. If there's an issue, blah, blah, blah. I'm going through this like if this, then that, right? What I'm not doing is writing a whole manuscript here. You can be succinct with the process and the flow that you need to educate the AI on in order to achieve your objectives. Okay, and you want to, last but not least, end the conversations with a clear recap, next steps. Schedule the technician for Thursday at 9 a.m. You'll get a confirmation text shortly. Is there anything else I can help with? All right. So scripts break. So if you have like giant scripts, the AI will go off them. Systems are more important. If you create the right guardrails for the AI, make sure it's educated on what to do, what not to do, create some if this, then that statements, have very clear handoffs for escalations. Your AI is going to kind of work within your parameters. And this is obviously very different than if you're hiring a CSR, right? If you're hiring someone to answer your phones and engage with your customers, you are going to train them a little differently. Hey, listen to some calls, follow this script. Here's a process book that you can follow. And we can hop on some calls and evaluate your efficacy. It's a little bit different with AI, right? We got to train it a little bit differently. You probably have to run through a slightly different playbook to get as good, if not better, results. All right. So a final note on training AI. I love this photo. I find it hilarious, but AI is incredibly capable, but it does take a lot of training in order to become effective. This is a famous image of Chihuahuas and blueberry muffins, and the AI historically has actually had a very hard time delineating between what point here is. It is incredibly smart, but it is obviously does require a lot of training and data in order to get it to a place where it's doing the job effectively. And you want to make sure in your business, it can delineate between a Chihuahua and a muffin, a good lead and a bad lead, etc. All right, so let's talk about some playbooks. This is going to be the more tactical piece of the conversation here, what you can implement in your business tomorrow to drive revenue. Using some of these principles, using AI, using automation to drive more sales. So the first is if you have a commercial part of your business, you can use AI to scrape leads on the B2B side. Oftentimes I talk to folks in the HVAC space and, their commercial B2B strategy is a function of driving around, knocking on doors, soliciting folks on cold calls, which is fine. It's sufficient. but you can use AI to create more qualified lead lists. So, for example, if you have really high conversion rates, really qualified lists, your conversion rate on cold leads will actually jump up considerably, like by 20 to 30%. And there are a bunch of tools that you can use to source data. So, for example, if I just have company name and business name, I'm probably going to convert 1 to 3% of those leads. If I know the company name, the person I'm targeting, the industry that they're in, I have some kind of context, a pain point that I can pull from their website. I know that there's an event that recently happened, a fire, a flood. I can have AI go in. There's a bunch of tools that do this that can pull this information for you. So you can have a list of all hospitals in the region and all the general managers there, or all the technicians there. What you could go out and pull all this information and have a list of folks that recently got their certification, and use this data and this information for prospecting to engage with them and to stand out from the crowd. Instead of just cold calling and knocking on doors, you could be a lot more specific with your messaging. Hey, John, I heard you just got ABCD, accreditation. Congratulations, et cetera, et cetera. What we're trying to do is create a reason for you to connect with them and tie it back to your product. So I have a whole masterclass on how to run this playbook, which if you're interested in, I can send you. But effectively, the goal here is, how do I use AI to scrape this data, all right, to go and find the hospitals or HOAs or commercial accounts that I want, and the people at those accounts, and the triggers and the data that I need to create a successful campaign to reach out to them, whether I'm calling them, emailing them, texting them, or knocking on their door and trying to get a physical meeting. And some of the tools that you could use for this are Clay or Zoom Info, and they're really effective. Like, you put in what you're looking for, and it's literally going to spit out an Excel spreadsheet with the information that you're requesting. Okay. It can literally go so far as to say, find me all the hospitals in this area, go on their website and look for the following keywords, and then create a sentence for why that particular keyword is relevant for my business as an opening line in a cold email. And the AI will literally scrape those websites. It'll find the information you're looking for. It'll craft the email, and it does all that for you in a matter of minutes. So think through the efficacy of that, right? All of a sudden now I have all this custom prompting that I can use to go out and engage these prospects automatically. So on the B2B side, we find this to be an incredibly useful tool. You probably will need help setting this up, but there is a ton of value in doing this. The other thing is, in terms of actually reaching out to prospects, when you reach out with one channel, I cold call, I go knock on doors, I have relationships. If you add a second or a third channel to that activity, i.e., I go and I reach out to folks and knock on doors, but I also send them text messages and I also send them emails, you will increase your conversion rate by almost 3x. So think of your BDRs, think of your sales reps, and the efficacy that you can squeeze out of them if they were to just go out and start messaging folks in addition to what they're already doing, which is knocking on doors or making cold calls. It's a really easy thing for you to do. You don't need to give them like 3 times the amount of work, right? We're not saying, hey, go out and knock on all these doors and then send all these individual messages. That would be a nightmare. You can do it all in one shot. So you can go and knock on doors, and then at the end of the day, create a list of like the 50 people you knocked on and create an automatic campaign to send them messages to follow up or to engage or to re-engage if it's been a week since you've seen them. You can go out and create this automation. So it takes, a click of a button, and all of a sudden these folks are getting customized messages that speak directly to them. The open rates on SMS are 98%. The reply rates when it feels conversational are 70 to 80%. So the ability for you to start engaging with prospects this way, in a way that feels authentic, that drives results, is a matter of minutes a week. And it's going to potentially double or triple your conversion rate on the commercial side. It's an incredibly, incredibly powerful tool that almost nobody is using. And it's like a light bulb goes off once they see this in action and start using it. So this is, if you take one thing out of the equation here, if you're doing commercial work, if you're not doing something like this is a absolute no-brainer to implement into your business. All right, on the residential side, which is what we'll focus on for the rest of this conversation, multi-channel messaging. So companies using multiple calls to action on their website. So call me, text me, send me a message, etc. See a 24% increase in conversion versus folks who are just using one call to action. So if you look at your website, you look at your Google Business Profile page, etc., go and evaluate how many touch points you have with the customer, unique touch points, right? So the example on the right, get a free estimate, which links to a form. Call this number, live chat. So there's 3, potentially 4 different calls to action on the website. That's really good. Oftentimes we'll see 1 or 2. Very, very easy for you to do, to add some of these extra calls to action. Now, again, going back to what I said earlier, speed is really important. So if you're going to put these up, you need to have either someone responding or you need to have technology in place to respond for you. So better, faster forms is a really good example of that. If you're using a form, which a lot of you are, what happens? Customer submits a form, it goes to an email address, you have to read it, you have to get back to the customer. If you use a form to text, what you can do is someone submits a form and then automatically gets an SMS message automatically after they click submit. So, it's kind of like a magical moment. I'm submitting some information on a website and I click a button to submit it and I get a text back being like, hey, John, thanks so much for reaching out. It looks like you're looking for A, B, and C. I had a couple of follow-up questions for you. And now all of a sudden I'm engaging with someone instantly with an AI, but I wouldn't know that. It's just asking me questions and I'm engaging with it instantly. It feels like a magical experience. This improves conversion rates by almost 50%. It is such an easy thing to implement. Most of our clients have a form on their website, and just by adding this little kind of workflow to their form, you'll see a huge conversion rate. Because what happens if you don't do that, right? What happens if you just complete a form, it goes to your email inbox, you wait, you get back to the customer, etc. What do you think the customer does? Customer's looking for a solution. Customer submitted a form. They're going to go submit another form. They're going to call someone else. They're going to keep searching until they get their answer. And so the first to respond 80% of the time is the first person to book a job. So being able to respond instantly to a form gives you a leg up on your competition, allows you to be more competitive, and quite frankly, just book more jobs. Really easy to implement, and a no-brainer solution if you're already using forms today. Preventing missed calls. This is a big one. Most businesses miss anywhere from 10 to 30% of their calls. And, this can be easily prevented if you add some AI in the mix. So phone rings once, I allow my customer service team to take the call. Phone rings twice, allow them to take the call. If they don't answer in 2 rings, on the 3rd ring, I'll have the AI intercept the call, qualify the lead, set expectations and next steps with the customer. I'm going to go from a missed call where I'm effectively going to convert at less than 10% to I'm going to convert at 50, 60% if the AI is able to intercept the call. It's taking a lead that otherwise would have been lost and is now bringing it back into the fold. A couple of interesting stats here. 80% of callers don't leave a voicemail and 60% of callers hang up in 20 seconds. So knowing this information, and you can just study your own call logs and see how long the phone rings and which ones you've picked up, which ones you haven't. You can also multiply that by the number of deals that you've missed in a month and what your average contract value is. And you can very easily go and evaluate how much revenue you lost by not picking up the phone, right? It's a very simple mathematical exercise to follow here. 10 calls were missed. I convert at 50%. That's 5 calls that I should have converted that I didn't. My average contract value is $10,000. I lost $50,000. It's as simple as that. And so oftentimes implementing something like this, either as an overflow strategy when the phone rings too many times, or even after hours, right? Same thing with the form to text thing. Phone rings and I leave a voicemail because it's late and your team follows up in the morning. That's the same thing as like someone submitting a form and you following up the next day. It's much more effective if you call after hours, someone picks up or an AI picks up and actually takes the information, can assess the call, set expectations with the client around next steps so they know, hey, John's going to call me back tomorrow morning. I've given this company all the information I need. I have less of a need to go and continue my search for a service provider when there's clear resolution or at least clear next steps when someone calls, versus a voicemail where I have no idea if you're going to listen to it, when you're going to call me back, etc. So this is a very, 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 very easy thing to implement into your business and a very low risk way for you to generate better customer experiences and outcomes. Demand surges. So we all know that during the winter, folks equipment breaks and their house gets cold, and the opposite in the summer. They need their air conditioning units fixed, and there's those heat waves, and you get really busy really quickly. During peak demand seasons, most service businesses will miss like half of their calls. And so what we have a lot of clients do is actually create AI agents that are specifically trained for demand surges. So the questions they ask are different. The expectations they set are a bit different. But the idea is I know that my phones are going to spike in June. So I have an agent on the ready after 2 rings in June. I implement this, and it's going to help me manage that demand surge that I know is coming. It's going to help me book more jobs, set expectation with clients. Even more importantly, it's going to allow me to see who is calling. Like, do I have a huge commercial contract that I'm not getting to because they're not leaving a voicemail and they're calling and I'm not answering? I have no idea. I don't have any information when I get a missed call. So when the AI intercepts a call, it's going to suss out all this information for you so you can better understand what's in your pipeline and you could prioritize you and your team's work appropriately. So not only can it help you book more jobs, but can also help you understand what's in your pipe so you can book the best quality job. All right, so I'm going to skip through because we do have a lot of content here, and I want to make sure I have time for questions. Converting lost leads is a really interesting one. Most of the folks that we work with, before they work with Distance, a lot of them don't really have a strategy for how to deal with lost leads. Someone engages with you but does not book a job. Someone engages with you but then kind of falls off the face of the earth. Like, you assume that they found another provider and don't engage them. But if you have a system in place to hit them back up 2 or 3 times, you will win back anywhere between 15 to 30% of those lost leads. So it's a recycling exercise. Folks that engaged with you did not book. Do I have a system in place where I can send them an automatic SMS campaign to re-engage and see if I can bring them back to the table? And just like clockwork, you will find that clients will come back to the table. Oftentimes they just got distracted, and you are staying close to the proverbial hoop here. And when they're ready, they will book with you directly. So really smart strategy to use here. And we see a lot of really great results from clients using these types of strategies. Avoid bad client experiences, during an installation or especially during a commercial job. How can I check in with customers? So using AI, SMS to ping folks to see, hey, how was your experience? How's it going? Is it going good? Is it going bad? If it's going good, create a ticket. Maybe ask them for a Google review. If it's going bad, right, what's the process? It's a quick check-in. Hey, John, how's it going with Jim on the team? I just wanted to quickly check in and see how your experience has been with Acme refrigeration, whatever the case may be. We're creating a systematized way for you to check in with clients so that you can get ahead of potential issues and also become more effective at soliciting, Google reviews. And so I'm actually a little early, but open it up to any questions. I'll also leave a QR code and a link for folks to book a meeting in the event that you want to get a free sales funnel assessment. On these calls, typically what we'll do is walk through your sales funnel, go through where there's opportunity for you to improve it, where you could use some technology to overlay into your funnel to drive better outcomes, and show you some examples of other HVAC businesses on the commercial or residential side that are using some of these tools effectively at around the same size as you to give you kind of some benchmarks for, what's been implemented successfully and how you can do the same. That's it.
Wonderful. Thank you, Nick. I'm going to give people some time to put some questions. You can do that in the Q&A button or the chat there. Maybe as we get started, there's always There's always a question in these businesses of like what is like the minimum first step I can take towards AI integration and change management. Like it can seem like a big topic to bite off and chew, and you did cover this in your presentation, but what is the next step after this webinar?
So the next step would probably be for you to figure out if where you have problems in your sales funnel today.
Hmm.
So if we talked to some folks who are like, they don't even know how many calls they're getting, let alone how many calls they're missing. So the first thing is like actually understand where you sit in this funnel. If you're flying your plane blind here, you're certainly not going to be in a good place to make improvements and grow your business and become more profitable, sell your company, whatever the case may be. So the first thing is like, do I have the data? Do I understand where I am losing opportunities? It's very easy to do, right? It's like, how many calls am I getting? How many calls am I missing?
Hmm.
Um, how many am I converting? And what's the average price, right? Like just start there, and that gives you like 80% of the value.
Hmm.
And then from there, you can say, all right, well, I'm doing that baseline work. Now, am I getting leads that are coming in organically? Am I getting leads that are coming in through advertising campaigns, through referrals? The answer is maybe I don't know, right? And how do you know that? Well, maybe I should create a system where folks that come in from this bucket call this number, folks that come in from this bucket call that number. And there are tracking numbers that you can invest in. They're very inexpensive. They're like $20, and
Hmm.
it gives you the ability for you to actually assess, okay, these calls came from this bucket, these calls came from this bucket. And now I can actually go one layer deeper and say, what's my efficacy on converting those calls versus those calls? And now I can start looking through the funnel and start identifying where those gaps are. And when I start to identify the gaps, now I can start thinking about technology and where it can be used to improve my process, right? So without some of that information, it's difficult for you to assess where this is going to add the most value. Um,
Definitely. Yeah.
so that's kind of where I would start, just making sure you have some of that basic information at your fingertips, so you can jump on a call with me and actually understand where the pain point is, so that
Hmm.
someone who on the other side can actually help you get to some kind of resolution and business result that moves the needle.
I do want to speak to thank you very much. I do want to speak to the management aspect because you might have a business owner that says, I do want my salespeople using this. But there is a reluctance to adopt technology into the process. What would you say to that? What are some steps there that can help?
I mean, I don't think anyone would want their team to calculate a forecast or create an expense report where they are writing everything down by hand and using a calculator, and it takes them 30 minutes instead of putting it in Excel and it taking 5 minutes, right?
Hmm.
There's very clear use cases of technology where it just makes everyone's life better, more efficient, more effective. Um, I would say you can avoid change management if the solution is easy and simple, right? So going back to what I said earlier, if I tell you, hey, you should be sending SMSs every time you talk to a client, what's the likelihood when you deal with like 50 clients a day that you are actually going to have the bandwidth or the time to send, like I'm adding like, 3 hours of work on your plate, which you're not
Hmm.
do. You're never going to do that. So if I told you you could do that by clicking two buttons, or if I told you you could do that automatically without clicking any buttons, now all of a sudden there's no change management. I've circumvented the change management because the technology is doing the work for me. And I think that's the benefit of AI and automation is it can avoid you and your team having to do anything, and really kind of automate processes that are redundant or kind of gaps in your sales process. So I would say there's a huge benefit to thinking about it in that way.
Excellent. We still have some time for questions. Do you want to put that QR code back up on the screen in case people want
Sure.
to scan it if they're in the video or they're watching this later? That'd be great.
Absolutely. What I'll also do is I will put a link to my calendar directly in this chat as well, so folks can
Yeah,
look at that, and then I'll share my screen here as well.
wonderful.
There we go.
I do want to remind people that there is a survey at the end of this presentation, so please take 2 seconds, fill it out. Let us know what you liked. Let us know what you'd like to see in future webinars. And if you want to put one on yourself, you can be Nick. Come on and speak to something that you're passionate about and very knowledgeable. Thank you so much, Nick. I think we'll call it there. Give people a chance to get some extra time in their lunch, and hopefully we can see you again on here.
All right. Thank you so much. Have a good one.
Take care. Cheers. Bye bye.
Bye bye.